Alright, I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I slept on Final Fantasy XVI. What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Hastags dropping some hot frog on this mic. Today we're gonna be talking about Final Fantasy XVI and mostly how I slept on the game. Now I'm gonna keep it real. Game's not out yet. The game could be, this big piece of mess. It could be just straight up mid. But at the end of the day, I think it's gonna wind up being a really good game. The reason I say I've slept on the game is because I would have in general been hyped for this in the past, but if you watch my last video about Tears of the Kingdom, I just haven't been super excited about video games lately. I've also talked about this on stream. I just haven't kept up with Final Fantasy XVI like I have other, Square Enix releases, including the previous major entry in the series, Final Fantasy XV. And I actually have been playing that quite a bit lately in preparation of getting myself, hyped for Final Fantasy XVI, but what they've shown over the past, month or so for the game has looked incredible. Let's not even just talk about the recent state of play that just happened, but some of the stuff that has happened before, like that long 2-hour live stream where it was Yoshi P, I believe, and a translator, and they were just going over stuff that you could do in the game. And while it was really candid and, sometimes it was kind of hard to watch, not because of the game being hard to watch or because it was slow, it was still really, really cool. They were really confident in this game in a way that I haven't seen from, Square in a minute. While yes, they'll show off games and they'll show off gameplay, it's as if they know this game, no matter what, cannot fail. And that is what I like that I'm seeing. It also looks like it's taking some of the ideas from Final Fantasy XV and really expanding on them in ways I didn't think they would do, in all honesty. I really like that they're taking the open world game approach with the game and then taking the action combat a step forward. Now, I know there are some in the Final Fantasy community that aren't really privy to the main entries continuing on being action RPGs because, admittedly, many people grew up with those turn-based RPGs. I mean, every major entry in the series as far as the numbered single-player titles until Final Fantasy XV had been turn-based games. And while Final Fantasy XV and even Final Fantasy VII Remake have kind of offered something for those turn-based fans or those who really aren't privy to action games, I think for the series to move forward and to really continue having as strong of a staying power as it does, it just needs to become an action RPG series. Especially if it wants to really grow in the West, even more so than it has now. Because many people talk about Final Fantasy XV in a negative light, but many people like the game, and it sold extremely well. And I think a large contributor to that is that action gameplay. But the game is very obviously stylish and very heavily action driven. It's much more in the vein of a character action game, or even something like Kingdom Hearts, which takes a lot from character action games and slaps it on top of a, action RPG formula and makes it work. And I really like that. I also think most notably it has the action or battle director from Devil May Cry 5. So I'm not surprised. It's just that I didn't expect it to look this good. Because to be honest, if you had told me that it was a character action game in the vein of Devil May Cry Bayonetta and had no RPG elements whatsoever, I would 100% believe you, because that's how insane the combat looks. Not to say that an RPG can't have that. Again, I listed series like Kingdom Hearts that do, but there's few and far between, is what I mean. I also like the approach that they're taking with the story. It seems like they're going for much of a darker tone, which I know sounds kind of counterintuitive because Final Fantasy, the series as a whole, has a lot of dark overtones, but I mean, it feels as if this is less anime and a little bit more real in a sense. And I really like the approach they're taking with storytelling. You get to play as the main character in his teens, his 20s, and his 30s. How this plays out, I don't necessarily know, but I do know based off of the past state of play that they have one of those situations where you start off in the middle or the end of the game and then you get knocked out or something and then it goes to a flashback to when he was a teenager. Ironically, kind of like Final Fantasy XV. It feels like this game is just kind of a big redemption arc for the Final Fantasy series after 15. 15 I think was a great game, it's just it was unfinished. So don't think I'm bashing 15 in a sense when I say that. It's one of my favorite video games and one of my favorite Final Fantasy games of all time. But overall, I also like the high fantasy setting. We haven't had this in a minute, at least in a mainline Final Fantasy game. So I think they're really taking the approach of rerouting the series, but also pushing it forward. Taking the things that people love about the Final Fantasy franchise, modernizing it, and ultimately, I guess, kind of rebooting the series after a few more controversial titles like Final Fantasy 15, or more notably, Final Fantasy 13. I mean, even going all the way back to really Final Fantasy 10 is where the controversy started. But still, I just feel like Final Fantasy 16 somehow has not been talked about enough. And maybe I'm just out of the loop. I honestly probably am. But I feel like Final Fantasy 16 is going to be one of those games that's going to take the world by storm and be not a sleeper hit, obviously, because it's a massive franchise. But I think it's going to be better than what people think it's going to be. So if people think it's going to be amazing, I think it might be one of those games that come out, and it may or may not be. Again, the game hasn't come out yet, but one of those games that's maybe contender greatest game of the generation or greatest game of all time. It just feels like it might be one of those genre-defining games that we get. And I think that's an amazing feat for the franchise after so many years. But honestly, how do you feel about Final Fantasy XVI, what we've seen, and have you even kept up with the game? I know a lot of the people on my channel actually subscribe to me for Final Fantasy content. Many have been here for Kingdom Hearts stuff, and then a lot of guys from Sonic and Smash. So I know there's a hodgepodge of people out there watching this if they are watching. Just tell me how you feel about this in the comment section down below. I really do want to know how you feel. But this is me, man, Hastags. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Remember, Hot Faraga turns to Cold Saga. Chill out some of my other content. And then follow your boy on Twitter and join the Discord. @MobShadak100 on Twitter. And the Oasis is my Discord. Links are down in the description below. Peace, and have a good one.